All right, so what we're going to be discussing here is the body's position that we get to the moment our front foot gets into the ground for the very first time. And this moment in time is called our foot strike. So we are going to be talking about the moment when, boom, those feet get into the ground for the very first time. And again, that's called our foot strike position. At foot strike, we want to be looking at our body in two halves. Our upper half and our lower half. At foot strike, we want our lower half to have rotated forward towards our target. And a useful thing to look at to know if we've been able to do that is the belt buckle. And is that belt buckle facing the target? If the belt buckle is facing the target, it's a pretty good chance that we have successfully rotated both the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip. When we're able to rotate the back foot, the back knee, and the back hip, as our front foot is getting into that foot strike position, we will successfully be able to get our belt buckle driving towards the target. If we specifically take a look at just the back foot of these four guys, let's watch as they are rotating that back leg, how that back foot is rotating. At this point in time, all four guys still have their entire foot flat onto the ground, and then they begin to rotate through or over top of their big toe. Their foot kind of rolls, folds over, or drives forward. And as the foot does that motion, we now shift our view to the back knee and know as the foot is rolling over the big toe, that the back knee is also rotating forward. And how those two things, the back foot and the back knee, are working together. We can also see that as we go to drive and rotate that back foot and back knee, how they do that while they gain ground down the mound and towards their catcher. So this is the difference between rotating our bodies forward, or a word for that is driving ourselves forward, versus just rotating in place. If we were just rotating in place, our bodies would not be able to gain this ground down the mound. Our bodies wouldn't be able to accelerate our power and energy down the mound. And we can then look and see that the foot has the toe, and then the heel is in front of the toe, meaning we have rotated forward. We then go to the upper body, the upper halves, from the waist up, and we want to separate that upper body from the lower body. We want the direction that our hips are facing, which is to the target, to be separate from the direction our shoulders are facing. So we notice we can see the Giants, the Padres, the Pirates, and his number. We can see the Phillies, and we can see the Brewers or Milwaukee. I'm not sure what they have displayed on their jerseys there. So the direction of their lower bodies is to the target, and the direction of their shoulders is still facing, for these right-handers, towards third base, or the direction they have been the entire time. So we rotate the lower body first, then we get into foot strike, then we rotate our upper body second. And the more that we can get those lower bodies to fully rotate to the target by the time that front foot hits the ground, and we've also been able to keep that upper body from rotating and staying back, we will have created as much upper lower half separation or hip shoulder separation as possible. And the more hip shoulder separation or upper lower half separation we can create, the more power we're going to be able to produce, and the amount of stress that's put on our arm is going to be reduced. What we're also going to notice is that almost regardless of your arm slot, if we have a true 3/4, low 3/4, high 3/4, an over-the-top arm slot, or anything in between those, we're always going to find ourselves in a relatively 90 degree angle, meaning from our elbow across to our other shoulder, we want to think is nice and even. 90 degrees in that armpit. We also want to think 90 degrees in that elbow. We want this type of arm position, that 90-90, we'll call it, at the moment of foot strike. When our arm has loaded up to this position here, at the moment of foot strike, and the upper body has not rotated yet, our body's rotation will accelerate the throw forward. If the arm is not in this 90-90 position, the body's rotation forward is going to be less than ideal and in sync with how the arm will flow after the body goes. So we're looking for this 90-90-ish position in that throwing arm at foot strike. What we can also notice at foot strike is, where is this glove at? It's in front of the body by the rib cage. We're not letting it, if we're thinking here's some water, don't drown the glove. Don't let your glove get wet. Don't drown that glove. This one right here is a little too high. Should be more towards the belt. Okay. When the glove gets finished into the body like this, it's able to help keep this front shoulder in line, meaning it's not going to open up early. Because if that front shoulder starts to open up early, that's going to start to pull the back shoulder forward early. And now we would not have separated our upper and lower halves as much, because the angle of the shoulders would begin to rotate forward, which would be more matching the angle of the hips. The final thing we're going to look at is this front leg. We see all these guys have different degrees of bend in their front legs. But what we're going to notice is that as the upper body now rotates to throw, we need to make our front leg become a firm fixture of which we can rotate around. So thinking about this front leg here turning into a flagpole. My flagpole is always going to be strongest if it's straight. Or at least I can't have my flagpole move forward while my body is trying to rotate forward. So we'll redraw these little outlines here, and we will have these guys. Oh man, that's all right. It's going to get back to it anyway. Boom. And now we'll watch as they go to throw. How that leg is locking out, stiffening up, straightening out. So that now that leg is here. Now that leg is here. Now that leg is here and here. From the bend, straightening it out. And what we can notice is as that leg locks out, stiffens up, straightens out, becomes that firm flagpole, notice how that upper body is able to catapult itself out in front and down more. Able to get out in front more. Out in front more. So that way, if we look, we can't get everyone exactly at release, but ball just out, ball just out, ball is coming out, ball is slightly a little bit more out than the bottom two. But we're able to look at this angle of the chin to the waist, back out to the front foot, boom, boom, boom. Just how out in front of themselves they're getting. And that's because of that front leg's ability to lock out. So we can see that they're starting, boom, boom, there, and there. So now it's not just the arm throwing the ball down, it's the body throwing the ball down. It's the body going down with the throw, body accelerating down. And as the body's accelerating down, the lower half is firming up. So that way, as I need to finish all this violent rotation, I have the ability to do that around that firm front leg. I have that ability to rotate around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my back leg around. I can finish all that violent rotation from my hips around. I can finish all that violent rotation out of my back shoulder around, giving my arm plenty of time to slow down and giving the back muscles, my scapular muscles, all the time they need to activate and slow down that rapidly accelerating arm. So now that you guys have had the opportunity to watch the big league breakdown, now we have you guys up with a new big leaguer for both you three, and then the other two guys will have two big leaguers as well. So we'll be able to compare and contrast things that we just learned to what your body's doing to better help us understand the things we're going to want to change and work on with our mechanics. So just like with the big leaguers, we'll get this pause for everyone at the moment of foot strike. All right. And what we learned is we need that backside foot to be turned over, going through that big toe, taking us forward down the mound. And when we do that, our back knee really gets to get driven forward, which really gets that back hip driving forward and down the mound. When all three of those, 1, 2, and 3 are successful, that gets that belt buckle to the target. And then we work our way up from that lower body, which is all rotated to the target. And we can see that upper body is still separated from that, meaning it's fighting to stay back. His chin is looking over his shoulder, right down to the catcher. We then look at some of you guys here, and what we're going to notice is this back foot hasn't begun to turn over yet. And because your back foot hasn't begun to turn over yet, the back knee can only go so far. And because the back foot hasn't turned over yet and the back knee can only go so far on its own, this back hip really hasn't had the opportunity to drive forward. So if we bring you back, we'll be able to see that your back foot's starting to, but that front foot's already in the ground. Your back foot won't get into a position like Ben Joyce's until here. Right? And we can see by the time your back foot got to the position that his was looking like at his moment of foot strike, just how much your upper body has had to come through. So if we took this lower body of yours right here, even this, and we were able to snapshot this, it would look exactly like that there. But it's just that little bit extra that it takes you to be able to get to that spot, and that's where we're just losing some power because we're not having as much upper lower half separation. So we need to get this back foot turning itself over sooner. And to get to turn over sooner, we got to be more aggressive with it. And to be more aggressive with the back foot, we need to get more, or not get more, but think my knee can only go so far. And when I really want to get my knee going, I got to really get this foot going. And if I really want to get these going, it's got to occur before this foot hits the ground. And right now, they're just occurring after the front foot hits the ground. All right, so then we'll come over here. And what we're going to notice is we're very heavy on this heel first. And just visually, it looks like we're just trying to stride way too far. We're overstriding your lower body's capabilities in terms of flexibility and range of motion. Just because it takes so long to get that foot into the ground. Not that there's anything wrong with landing with the heel, but you just land with the heel so far with your body so far behind it that it really takes a lot of time to get that foot into the ground. We can see The reason I think it's also too far of a stride for you is if we watch your back knee, your back knee is going through the rotation, but it's more of like my leg gets straight and then I'm going to kind of like spring away from the mound. All right, you're kind of just like getting this like straight-ish, and then we're just kind of springing away as that heel turns to front toe. From the front heel hitting the ground to the front toe, that's when your knee is actually starting to rotate, and it's hard to rotate your knee with aggressiveness when your leg is nearly straight. We go back to Ben Joyce, and we see when his knee is starting to rotate, it's in this nice bend. Bam. So we need to get this knee to learn how to really be aggressive in its rotation, really how to fire that knee through, and how that knee firing gets the hip firing. And then once those two learn how to fire really hard, the back foot will just need to learn at what time to do them all, because the foot will trigger all of the aggressiveness, all of the final turning over of the knee and the hip. As we see with Ben Joyce, the knee can only go so far, the hip can only go so far on their own, and then once this foot gets involved, boom, they really get that last bit of power, that last bit of rotation, that last bit of range of motion really occurs when the foot starts to go. And for you, when your foot starts to go, it's right as that heel is starting to hit the ground. So we just need to, like I said, learn how to be in a bent knee as we rotate this backside some more, rather than getting it straight and then trying to rotate it. We'll work our way down, and what we're going to notice is as we get into foot strike, your back leg has done no rotating. Kind of like we just discussed up here, your leg's just getting straight. It's not rotating. We're not really engaging in our legs at all. We're just kind of tall. We get a little bit of a load in the back leg, and then it's just swoop this front foot out, lean my weight forward, and now here I am at foot strike. And we can see your hips have not rotated hardly more than 5 or 10 degrees. And that's because this back knee isn't really doing any rotating for you. It's just straight going from a bend to no bend, bend to no bend. So you're kind of like leaping or jumping down the mound, could be another way to think about it maybe. Instead of rotating down the mound or driving your body down the mound or getting your belt buckle to go down the mound, right? We got this belt buckle going down the mound. All right, driving the belt buckle down the mound. Your belt buckle so we need to see how, because you're not getting into your legs, when you go to rotate, you're just driving yourself straight forward instead of rotating yourself down the mound. Rotating yourself down the mound versus pushing yourself, jumping yourself forward towards the mound. And because of that, we will see just how late this arm is, right? Whereas when we saw the big leaguers, saw all their arms were at that 90-90 position by the time their front foot gets in the ground. And we can see, boom, there's Ben Joyce. Foot strike, 90 degrees. Boom, boom, boom. 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. We got foot strike, and we got 90, 90. All right, we get you to foot strike, and we can see your hand hasn't even come up all the way yet. We got boom, down here, over here. So now when you go to throw, not only is your back leg taking you up this way because it's going straight, now your throwing elbow, which is below your shoulder, as it goes to throw, is also going to go up. And because this hand is not loaded not only up, but back towards first base dugout, behind his head, behind his back, there's going to be minimal power. It's going to be a lot of pushing, dragging, trying to catch this arm up with the rest of the body. All right, so what we're going to see is as you come out, there goes everything just kind of trying to get pushed up, and your ball is getting released way up here. Or look where Joyce's ball is getting released. It's out here, way out in front. And all of the upper body of this is just gotten to this point because of what this has been doing. So now that this has done this for a lot, this has been stuck with having to work like this now. So we need to clean up this backside leg, but we also need to clean up this arm path and this arm swing, this arm load. So basically your entire backside half of your delivery, we need to repattern and resynchronize. We go back up top, and what we're going to notice with your arm is we got this high elbow load, and now your shoulders and your elbows are going down this way. We need them to be going this way. And we can see yours get up here. And you as well, when your front foot first starts to get into the ground, your arm is so far late getting itself up, hand up, because you've been taking this elbow up during the time that the hand should be coming up. And we should be having this hand get up. And instead, the elbow is getting up. So then by the time the hand does start to come up, it's as that foot's getting in the ground, and now your hand too is late. So now as your hand actually gets loaded up, it's going to be because the throwing elbow, the throwing shoulder is starting to rotate through. So now we're going to be left with less ability to rotate our body smoothly in sync with our arm. Our arm is going to be behind. It's going to be dragging behind a little bit, which is going to add extra stress to the front of your shoulder. Potentially coming into the elbow, but more than likely, you're going to feel it in your front shoulder. So we need to figure out and retool your arm path as well, so that way we don't get this elbow super high up here, right? Everyone's got different arm paths, but when we get way up here and then that elbow goes down, right, we can see your elbow is here at this point in time, and then your elbow gets down to here, right? Your elbow went down that far. Now, if we notice, the hand is also at this level, and then the hand is also at this level, right? So it's a lot of flipping that elbow down, or dropping the elbow is bringing the hand up instead of the hand bringing itself up. Because as that elbow is coming, bam, that's part of the throw. And your hand is not loading up early enough to be ready for that throw. And we watch here, this hand's going to be up ready to throw. It's up ready to throw. You saw it in the other 4 big leaguers, and you'll also be able to see it in this next 4 videos of 2 of your teammates and 2 of more big leaguers. Over here, we're going to see slightly the same thing of the arm just not being in sync. The arm gets loaded good, but it's got a hold here, right? Notice how Joyce holds from this shoulder and this elbow starting to rotate forward. How it keeps loading. It's holding. Now, if you watch yours is holding, starting to come through. 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 Or we watch Joyce, and he's still holding it. So if we can fire this sooner, so we're not just trapped here, hopefully we can sync that up with a better, stronger load, because those 2 occur hand in hand. When this fires, this loads. When this fires, this loads. 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 So if we can get more aggressive with this, that load can get more aggressive, and then therefore we won't be sacrificing the first 5% of your shoulder's rotation before that arm is really ready to throw. Next group of guys here. We got George Kirby, Garrett Cole. Beneath you guys. Pause everyone at foot strike. Excuse me. And what we're going to notice is the vast difference in these guys' back hips and how much they're driving forward, how well you can see their belt buckles going to the target, and at the same time, how they're from their back elbow to their front shoulder is straight across, and their chins are looking straight on down over those shoulders. If we now look at your guys' back legs, we can see your foot kind of is trying to turn over, but we can just see how much more Kirby and Cole have, and their back foot's being turned over that big toe. Yours is starting to, and because yours is starting to, your back knee has not been able to rotate or drive yourself forward as much. And because your knee and your foot have not been able to do this movement enough at this point in time, the back hip really has not been able to drive itself forward. It's gone forward. Your hips as a whole have gone forward, but your back hip rotating to catch up to your front hip here, this hip going to this hip, has not gotten enough ground made yet. What we can notice with Kirby and Cole is that these hips, these back hips, are really getting going as these front feet are getting into the ground. And that's what's really helping their lower bodies rotate to the target to help them produce high velocities. Not only are they able to produce high velocities, but they're able to minimize the stress that gets put on their arm so they can pitch deep into the game, deep into the season, and maintain velocity throughout. What we'll notice over here with your back foot, same thing. The back foot has started its movement, but it hasn't actually taken you forward at all yet. The back knee has done a good job rotating, but it's stuck in its ability to really go by just how much the back foot allows it to go. So we can see it's got that good rotation, but a lot of that rotation is not gone forward with. So we watch your back hip, boom, we get this rotation. We've only gone a little bit during that. We take it back to these guys and we go back hip when Cole's going to start his rotation. And we can just see, obviously, perspective, how far the camera is away has a lot to do with it. But we can just see like the body is able to go a lot further. And that's because the back foot allows it to go further. So we got to find a way to keep this foot off the ground for longer so that this foot can continue the movement it started. And we can see how your body wants to go forward, but now instead of it being able to go forward, it's just rotating in place. Your back hip and your back shoulder are all rotating forward at the same time. And that puts a lot of stress on your arm to throw the baseball. It puts a lot of inaccuracy in your throws because your body is having to work so hard to make the throws instead of being able to work smoothly and effortlessly to make the throws, that our accuracy is going to have an impact. And then both of those things together minimize our velocity. So we increase the chance of injuries because of the stress being put on our arm. We decrease our velocity and we decrease our command of our pitches. So we really want to take a look at getting our lower body to work a little better for us, a little bit more aggressively for us, a little bit more down the mound for us. And then we can also see how your front shoulder wants to really kind of start to get out, and it's because your front elbow and front glove get outside of the center of your body. And we can see where's Cole's glove going, it's getting finished back into his body. Same thing with Kirby, getting finished back into the body. Versus yours going out. And that's what opens your shoulder early. Same thing over here. That elbow is really starting to take that front shoulder of yours out early, and that's minimizing your power as well. So both of you guys really got to get this lower body going. We got to load it up and we got to use it. We got to get things going rotated wise forward. We can see that this front knee has not rotated enough before it gets in the ground, and we're going to see it wobble a lot. It's a lot of wobble in that front knee, and we need to be throwing over a firm front side, not a front side that's wobbling like that. That's going to minimize power, going to minimize accuracy, and it's probably going to be adding some unneeded stress onto our shoulder that we definitely do not want to be having. We then go and we look at these arms, and we can see that both of our big leaguers, their arms are loading up right as that front foot is getting into the ground. And they're in that 90-90 that we discussed with all the other big leaguers, right? That 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here. Boom and boom. And we got that 90 degrees and 90 degrees. What we can see here is we're getting just a little wide, so a little big. And why are we getting a little big? Well, because the arm is still loading up at the same time that your front shoulder is opening up. So we just kind of get flung open, and when we get flung open, we get wide. So we just got to think, in order to stay tight, we got to stay closed. Closed meaning this front shoulder staying in. We then come over here, and what we're going to notice, same thing, is your hand has not loaded up to be ready to be thrown before this back shoulder is ready to start throwing. So we're going to see as we come through here how as your hand is loading up, your hand is loading up, how your back elbow and back shoulder are starting to go forward. forward, forward, forward. This would be like hitting and starting your swing, but not loading your hands back or loading whatever you got to load with your upper body back before you swing. It'd be just like starting your swing with your hands right by your ears. You ain't going to do nothing with it. Same thing with this. We got to get this loaded up, not just the hand loaded up, but the arm loaded back towards first base. So that way we can rotate it around to third base and most importantly out in front. Because your hand is loaded, by the time your hand gets loaded up to the sky, your elbow is already starting to come through instead of it being still loaded back. Another way to think about it would be punching someone with your hand half cocked or punching someone with your arm fully cocked, ready to go. We want to make sure we're locked and ready to go. So both of you guys will need to work on some arm path, arm stroke, arm timing drills as well. All right, we're going to be discussing the mechanics from a front view, and we're just going to concern ourselves with our path or the flow down the mound. So we already got these videos to the top of these guys' leg lifts. Obviously, every pitcher comes down the mound at different rates, different speeds. However, to make these guys flow together, I have changed up their speeds to fit. So what we're going to see is that we got Jerry Jones over here getting that front leg fully extended and really sitting into his delivery. We got Granke, who's got his knee, which is going to be further back towards second base than his foot is. He's really taking this front knee and kind of curling it back so that his front hip stays closed. And Kirby is going like Jones here with his front leg, but he's keeping it in a more bent position rather than kicking it straight out like Jones. But what we do notice is no matter how these guys load into their back hips, getting down into their legs, engaging their lower halves, what do we notice? We notice where the glove is going. And that's to help them be able to see over their front shoulder. They want to be looking down the barrel of their shoulder. Because the longer we can be looking here over this shoulder as we proceed down the mound, obviously we've gotten back to center, but look, we're still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that shoulder. Still looking right over that front shoulder. The longer we can do that into our moment of foot strike, bam, bam, we can see front shoulder, and our head is still trying to fight to keep that front, or rather our front shoulder is still fighting to stay above our chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. The front shoulder is still fighting to stay in above the chin. And when we do that, we can see that the back hip now has been able to come through, exposing the belt buckle to the batter, to our catcher, but preventing, because that front shoulder's fought to stay in so that we continue to look over it. Look what that's done with our chest. It's kept it squared up, squared up, squared up, as that lower half has been able to fire, and there lies our upper lower half separation that we're trying to achieve. And now here comes the most important part. Getting into this position is key for both our power production, our ability to throw the baseball with our body, thus reducing the amount of stress that's going on through our arm during that delivery, and helping ensure, this wasn't the straightest line here, helping ensure our energy continues to flow to the catcher. All right, we can see that head staying there, that head staying there. Kirby's fighting to keep it in there. And you can see he's fighting to keep it in there because it did not go more out there. So we're rotating that back shoulder. We're rotating that back shoulder forward. 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 So that way all of our power can be flung through those fingers, out through that ball, forward. If we watch that again without any interruption, Into foot strike. Out of foot strike. Everything staying in line with our target. And then noticing as they're getting into release, where are those chin and chests going? To the target. To the target. The angle of our trunk, this mass from our shoulders through our waist, our trunk right now is upright. It's above our hips. In relation to the ground, it's in a 90-degree angle. As we get into release, those trunks in relation to the ground are no longer up here trying to throw the baseball. Instead, in relation to the ground, these trunks of these elite throwers of the baseball, both in terms of command, the best to ever do it, in terms of longevity and success, one of the best to do it, and an upcomer with elite velocity and potential to be an all-star. Every one of their trunks at release went from being up here at foot strike to out here at release, bringing that energy down the mound, but most importantly, towards our target. And that's something that we're able to see even easier and more clearly in the side view videos. All right, so if we kind of take this back once more and we see these arm slots, we'd say, boom. Oops, let me draw a better line than that. Right, we're at a high three-quarter. We are in a same thing. Three-quarter, high three-quarter. Same thing here. Right? So these are some of your most common arm slots are the three-quarter to high three-quarter arm slot. And then what we'll look at next here are some guys that are in that lower three-quarter tier. So we'll let, we got Luis Hill, Kyle Harrison, and Carl Crawford. All right, so the same thing, moment of that foot strike, we can see that they're still fighting to keep that front shoulder in, fighting to keep that front shoulder in, and then coming to release and through, we can see how those heads are fighting to stay in. Luis Hill a little bit outside, but we can see through release, bam, it's there. Now it's out, which is no big deal. It's already stable for long enough post-release, bam, that he could do a cartwheel over here if he wanted to after. So fighting to keep that front shoulder in, and by doing that, the shoulders have stayed squared up, and with a good lower half timing and pattern sequencing, we got the back hip to have come forward, exposing that belt buckle to the batter, creating that upper and lower half separation that we're trying to seek in order to achieve higher velocities and minimize the stress that's put on our arm during these high intense and continuous throws. If we then take these guys into their moment of release, we got that same concept that we did earlier, and we can see here's our low 3/4, even getting closer, some would say, to even true sidearm. We have that low 3/4, and we got that 3/4 to low 3/4. But what we can notice is all the same with those different arm slots, but the most common arm slots in our game. All these guys are fitting the same bill in their own unique ways, but these important key points are all very much getting checked off by each, no matter what. All right, now that you guys have had the opportunity to watch and study the big league videos from the front view, we got the 5 of you guys up, we got 3 guys together, and we got 2 other guys with the big leaguer to make a third guy. So we'll get you guys paused at foot strike here. And what we want to first think about is everyone, for the most part here, is starting their leg lift at the same exact time. And the sooner we can get that front foot into the ground, the sooner we can start rotating our upper body around to make the throw. And the sooner we can start to rotate that upper body around to make the throw, the sooner the catcher is going to get the ball. The sooner the catcher can get the ball, the sooner he can get the ball to our middle infielders or to third baseman on stolen base attempts. So the longer it takes you to get there, the more susceptible you are going to be to stolen base attempts. So we are in a race to get this foot down and throw while in the stretch. So we can just see if this didn't get paused, we would be already starting to rotate the throw. We would be just now getting into ready to throw, and we still are going through our delivery. So we're going to need to work on getting the leg lift up and getting the body going. Get it up, get it going, get it up, get it going. We don't got that time to just sit around and wait during the leg lift. All of us can get better at that. I don't know if I made comment of that in your guys' front views, but everyone on the team can get better at it. We all need to work on being able to gain ground as we lift our legs up. So what we'll notice next is this front shoulder is trying to stay in, but we haven't quite gotten that front foot all the way in the ground. Right? We can see this ball, like we talked about earlier, hasn't loaded itself all the way up yet. And at this point in time, we're about to start to make that throw. What we can see as well is here's this arm over here starting to come through early on us. And we can also see that front shoulder is out and that chin is looking over nothing rather than looking over the shoulder. So if we get things just a little bit further in progression, so that way we can get this front foot of yours all the way in the ground, all the way into the ground, all the way in the ground, we can see just how much of that upper body has begun to rotate. Right? And from the side view, we talked about that knee wobble. And that knee wobble is because this front foot and front knee are not rotating forward enough by the time you get into your foot strike here. Boom, the foot is landing early. If the foot rotated more or the knee rotated enough, because the foot's straight, right? It can't rotate 91 degrees. I mean, it could, but we don't really want that, right? So your foot can't rotate anymore. So if your foot can't rotate anymore, how come the foot's not flat on the ground? It's because this knee is not rotated enough. You got your hip, you got your foot, and then you got your knee. You're not going to be able to throw this baseball until this knee gets somewhere in this area here. And what we're going to see is your knee will wobble all the way out to exactly there. But unfortunately, by the time it gets there, the ball is already out of your hand. So the entire time you're throwing around a front leg that is also rotating. Front foot is rolling over. Right? And it's tough for this to be explosive, whippy, and aggressive that way when the entire part of your body is just going over there. So we just need to think about getting this front leg all the way rotated. And that means your kneecap not facing third base on deck circle, but getting that knee more towards the catcher or more towards the righty batter's box. So that way we don't have such a big wobble in that front leg. What we can see over here would be a good difference in that. That kneecap isn't nearly as much over there, and because of that, it doesn't wobble as much. There is some wobble before it gets to lock out. But if that front leg was rotated more, we wouldn't have so much of that. Same thing here. We can see how the heel hitting first, like we talked about in that side view, and how by the time the toes get down, this knee as well is going to give a bunch over to first base as you're trying to rotate and get out in front. the knees given, and then everything else would have the ability to start to go this way as well, making it just a little bit more difficult for our throw to be going that way with all of our energy continuing to go that way. So in order for this not to have to roll over this way and for the knee to sway that way and the front hip to be giving rather than blocking, we need to get the knee a little bit more better underneath the hip and the foot instead of it being all by itself over here and then getting to here after. You can also see over here, because everything's kind of out of sync with your arm path, that when you go to throw, everything's going up still as you're throwing. Everything's going up as you're throwing, up as you're throwing, up as you're throwing, and then your body just stays up. We got to drive this thing down. Drive this thing down. We got to slam our chest down this mound. You're trying to throw all arm, and you're trying to throw all arm down, but in reality, at point of release, everything's going up still. Up still. You can see the difference when the throw goes forward more. Boom, boom, boom. Versus your throw going up, up, up. And that's not because the arm slots are different, because in fact, they're pretty much... Oops. The same angle. From one another. We're just able to get things out in front better, out in front better, out in front better, versus you being tall and trying to just flick it down instead of driving it down. Oops. So we got a next group. Same thing for you guys. We need to get better at gaining ground during that leg lift so it doesn't take so long for us to get into foot strike here. We can see both of you guys' legs are all the way up and you haven't quite gone anywhere yet. We can see, well, I can't really compare you guys with this one with Skeens. Skeens is in the wind up here. There's no rush in the wind up. We're in the set and the stretch. But we can even see with Skeens how his body is already coming forward, already coming forward, already coming forward as that leg is getting up to 100% leg lift. 100% leg lift, he's already coming with his body forward. You guys don't start coming forward with your body until legs are going down. We're going to get dominated in the running game if we don't start getting our bodies going forward until after our leg lift has reached its peak. We got to get it up, get it going, get it up, get it going, get it up, get it going. Not get it up, wait for it to be at the top, then start to go once the leg's going down. So we'll let that roll back to the beginning with that in mind. Let you guys watch it again. Okay, so like we talked about in your side view, bud, how your front shoulder was opening up. We can see how that impacts this. You don't really have that shoulder like we see with Skeens that he's looking over, like we see over here, like we're looking over. And that's because that elbow and that glove got so far outside your body so quickly. Why did it get so far outside your body so quickly? Well, like we saw in the front view, it stayed in its lane, or it started, rather, in this lane. Started in this lane. But notice how long it stays in the lane versus how quickly yours starts to get out of the lane. Right? Glove is at its finish point when it's at the backside of the lane here. Same thing over here, right? It's in its finished position, or where it's going to finish at as we're getting into foot strike. But we can see your glove, by the time it gets to where it would be or should be finishing Our foot's nowhere close to being in the ground yet. And that's because we still got to go, 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 go. And because this glove was so quickly to vacate this lane, it got way over into this lane. And this lane over here impacts everything that's going on up here. So we got to be able to learn how to keep this glove. We got to ride it out in this lane here. Because once it gets into this lane over here, you're going to be into the danger lane over here. We want to finish here. We don't want to finish over here. So it means we got to stay here longer. You guys both do a good job getting this front leg forward towards our target with a good front leg bend that's going to be able to be stable. We can see the same thing is occurring with Skeens. Skeens just strides across his body a little bit more than you guys do, right? Here's his back toe. And we can see this is the mark where his front foot's landing. So he's going across his body. We're going, that wasn't a good line. We're going dead straight. And we're going a little across our body, right? But what we're going to notice is Skeens' knee is going to do a good job firming up and locking out. It's not going to swivel. It's not going to bow. It's not going to give. All it's going to do is just straighten out. Boom. What we can notice this knee's doing is it's giving. It's giving. And if our stride is too big, it's going to be tough to be stable and firm on a leg that's really reaching out there. And that's why I think we need to revisit that stride direction and that thought that we talked about of driving your front foot into the ground instead of reaching it out into the ground is going to help the foot get into the ground sooner. And if it's in the ground sooner, it's not going to travel as far. And if it doesn't travel as far, hopefully we're more stable on it. So that way, as we are rotating the back shoulder forward, we don't get it redirected over this way because this knee goes this way. And we can see the knee went that way. This kind of gives that way. And now we're going away from our arm that's trying to be sent this way. And we can see if the energy of our body started this way and the throw wants to go that way, but we got some going this way and some going that way, that's not going to be as efficient or as much that way. We look at Skeens, and because this firms up, everything gets to go forward. Everything gets to continue in this line of direction, forward, forward, forward. So this chin is making its way over his front foot. Over his front foot. Over his front foot. Versus at that same time, your head is going there. So it's hard to send energy towards the target if our body, our upper body, as we're trying to rotate to the target, doesn't want to stay in line with the target. And that same exact message can be applied for us over here. All right, we see that head doing that same thing. And when the head goes that way, the arm gets flung out that way, which makes it very, very difficult to get out in front that way. And we'll see just how much of that is the case with you, bud, by how your arm is finishing this throw. We're trying to throw energy this way. So if we watch Skeens, we're trying to throw energy this way. So where's his arm go? His arm goes from back, forward, and his arm continues to rotate around forward. So we'll go from here to, let me get that. We'll go from here to release, to finish, Boom. So the arm flips forward, and then it rotates around. We can even take that further and have that continue around. And we can see how the shoulders have done the same. After this moment in time, the hips, we can continue with the same thought. The hip continues around as well. All right, but if we just go back to that arm path again, right? It's laid back as far as it can, just like yours is laid back as far as it can. It's being flung forward. Then the arm is finishing around. Okay, so there's being flung forward, balls out, and then the arm finishes around. So you can see how the path to throw is very similar to the path that it finishes. So now we go with yours, and we got the much as your arm can lay back. We go forward some more. We're coming through, and like it's going up, up, up this whole time, right? Again, some of that has to do with perspective of the camera. This one's shooting up at you. This one's shooting down at him. So I understand that, but we can just see how much that ball is going up as you're throwing it rather than trying to go forward while you're throwing it. And now here comes this arm out of the finish, right? So we'll draw another circle inside it. That's when the ball comes out of the hand. And now here comes your hand this way. All right, so it's kind of a weird path we're taking here. It's not coming out in front of you and around. It's not getting around you. It's going across you. And I mean, your arm has just got to be barking at you at all times when we pitch. I mean, we really got to learn and see how this back shoulder is going down and around, down and around, whereas your back shoulder is going up and to the side. So we need to work a lot of arm, just a lot of throwing drills for the arm path, because your arm is just going to be throbbing all the time if we got too much of this going on. We get over that point there and continue to come through. We can see you guys do a good job of those hips coming through like we talked about with Skeens. We can see that the shoulders are getting into a good spot at the end. So it's just that beginning part of making sure once we begin to throw, we stay in our lane of throwing and not letting that front shoulder and head and or knee get outside of our wall here. Stay through your wall. Don't go into the wall. Stay up against it.